Hey, so I went to DoverCon in Dover, Delaware, and I'm gonna glaze Delaware. I love Delaware. Okay, Delaware is my person. If it was a person, every time I drive through there, it's so relaxing, so peaceful. I've not had a bad encounter with anybody. Everybody seems really friendly, and it's just a wonderful thing. So I'm going to Delaware, and halfway there, I'm like, oh crap, I forgot my table. It's an outside convention for the whole neighborhood, and I forgot my table. Luckily, had like a little small 2-foot table in my trunk, and I took some grids. I took some grids and stacked them up, so it gave me a little more space to put stuff on top of. But mistake number one. So I get there, my spot is good. It's like already a good spot. It's on the corner. In fact, give me one. I'm gonna show you. Hold on. Okay, this is the setup right here, right? I'm gonna show you where I was. Right there on that corner, right? So here's what my dumbass did. My friend Summer was there. Shout out to Summer. Go over and subscribe to her Some Art on IG. She was like, hey, why don't you come and set up next to me? Okay. So I was like, yeah, sure. Why not? Why wouldn't I want to be next to my friend, right? My spot, that's right there on the corner of the main street. And I'll show you where she is. She's basically on the opposite corner, right? Right? The opposite corner. Okay. Guess where I had a choice to be? You see that narrow? You see that right there? Right there. Now, you got to understand, we're facing cars, and behind us are trees. Okay. Yeah, my chicken scratch, whatever. So, cars and then trees, right? I was so stupid. So, like, I'm in that narrow strip. Behind her. She's still on the corner of the main street. Okay, I should have just stayed. And plus, I was not only on the corner in my original spot, but I was also at the main entrance. Why was I so stupid?
You've probably heard the term
I go ahead and set up next to her. She got someone to help me put up my tent, which definitely needed to be up because it was like 90 something degrees outside. And boy, I was already starting to feel it the moment I stepped out of that freaking car. Then I put up my makeshift table, which was the 2-foot by 2-foot, and then the metal grids that stacked up next to each other. So it made my table kind of look like a 4-foot table, but it sucked. So I set up. I did not take any pictures of it because it looked jank. I ain't even gonna lie, it looked jank. It worked for the 6 hours, but it looked jank. But when I set up, it was already an hour into the event. One, I didn't have the table. Two, I moved spots to a more inconvenient spot that wouldn't get me as much traffic. And three, my table setup was just janky because of number one, which is forgetting the table. So we're not having a good day. And it didn't help that Summer was next to me racking up all the sale.
You lose.
Because like I said, she was still on the main street on a corner. So she was getting all the traffic. All the traffic. All the traffic was coming to her. Meanwhile, I'm behind her like, I'm gonna just sit here and listen to my K-pop until someone notices us back here. It was like me and like 3 or 4 other vendors on that strip. And I'm like, any day now, any day now. And then it happened. So I got my first sale, which was freaking awesome. I don't know who this guy was. Um, I was actually looking for somebody, to be quite honest. I've talked about her before, the one that's heavily invested in Inlock. I was like, I finally have book 4. I have an omnibus. Um, I have some stickers of the characters. I'm good to go, right? And she didn't show up. She didn't show up. But this guy, he heavily invested into the whole series. He bought all 4 books. I sold a lot of books, to be quite honest. And I think I need to restock them. So that was good. That always makes me happy when people invest more into my original works instead of just buying fan art prints and fan art stickers and buttons and stuff. When you like my stuff that I wrote, that came out of my idea, out of my brain, like it makes me feel really good. I'm very grateful for that. After that, we had like a dead time, basically. People are just, wandering around doing their thing. And I decided to walk around a little bit, but I'm not gonna lie, it was so hot. Here I am. I had my tent, I had a hat on, I had a big old bottle of water, and I still ended up with like heat exhaustion at the end of the day. It was hot. But needless to say, I didn't like film as much at this convention because like I said, the weather was hot and I was not with it. I was not with it. I was just sitting there the whole time, like especially when it slowed down, I was just sitting there like, the sun. I don't really care. Like I was melting. Yeah, things went on from there. I didn't really get as many other sales after like that big old rush for like an hour. And I just sat there and I was just watching Summer, and I think I learned a few things from her, to be quite honest. There is a interview on my Frey Talks Connect that is on the channel where she actually gives you information on and tips on how to sell. So I'm going to put that video, somewhere here or there or wherever. I'm also going to put a link to it in the descriptions, so you can check that interview out. But yeah, man, it's Delaware, so it's like I can only be so angry because I love Delaware so much. So it's like, I made about $200 or so. And on a normal occasion, that wouldn't have been so bad. But, when you're next to someone who made like $1,000+ you're kind of like, so it was a decent show. But I love Delaware, and that's my story. I think I'm going to probably retire there. I think I'm going to retire there. I'm not even gonna lie. I just love Delaware. And so much so that the majority of my conventions this year are in Delaware.
Stop second.
That's pretty much it for that convention. It was outside. The whole neighborhood came out. It was packed. They had wrestling matches. They had food trucks, Very, very festive time. Very festive time for Dover. So if this helped you out, or if you just liked it, go ahead and subscribe and like and share for all this information. Again, I do con recaps every time I go to a convention, so you know which ones are good to sign up for in the future. But until next time, keep creating and keep valuing yourself.
The world collapsed, and the last survivors of humanity retreated beneath the massive dome surrounding the city of Azure, protected by artificial gods known as the Gold Eye. For 2 years now, the people of Azure believed the outside world was uninhabitable, until a stranger arrives, claiming humanity can finally leave the dome behind. Inlock is a dark sci-fi fantasy manga about broken gods, political control, and challenging what it means to survive. Check out Volume 1 through 4 on www.freyofficial.com.